So today we talk about how to lift safely when you have pelvic organ prolapse, and there's a couple of different things involved in safe lifting. Now, first and foremost, I want to say that if you do have pelvic organ prolapse, you need to work on gaining some pelvic floor strength. So there's quite a few videos. I'll put a link up above to 20 minutes exercises for getting the pelvic floor back under control. There's also endurance exercises, speed exercises, and maximum strength Kegel exercises. Different functional exercises, sit to stand exercises. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to get your pelvic floor working. It's very important to do those. There's also then co-contraction between the deep abdominals, the transverse abdominis, which comes around from the sides and kind of wraps around this way. And it's the deepest layer up down to about here. So if you feel your hip bones and then walk in and down just a little bit, there you're meeting your transverse abdominis. And learning to contract gently the transverse abdominis and get a pelvic floor contraction going at the same time, a co-contraction, that is the brace technique that you will need to use for any lifting that you're going to do. So I would encourage you to learn how to do that co-contraction between the pelvic floor and the lower abdominals, because that's going to help a lot when you start to lift things. And don't intentionally lift heavy things right away. If at all you can avoid it, get someone to help you with carrying your groceries. If there's someone there to help you with the kids, that can be very helpful. But in many situations, you don't have somebody there to pick up the child, even though you have a pelvic organ prolapse and a weak pelvic floor. So what I'm going to show you today is how to be able to manage even though you don't have another person and you maybe are carrying one or multiple pelvic organ prolapses where there's multiple points of weakness within the pelvic floor. So we're going to start first by just looking at the body a little bit and how it functions. So if we have our hips here, so if I flex my hips, I am bending forward, and if I'm doing that, I want my hips to be moving backwards because my feet, that's my base of support, and whenever you move the upper body forward, you want the weight to come backwards so that you stay evenly balanced over your base of support. Now, what a lot of people do when they lift is they round their back and they lift with their back or they lift with their pelvic floor, and that's actually very dangerous. You can hurt your back. If you've ever done that, if you've ever gone to pick something up improperly and hurt your back, you'll know what I'm talking about. I've done it many years ago. That was an issue I had. But let's just use this little ball as an example. The hips need to flex. The backside needs to move backwards. So you shift yourself over your base of support. If you look at the spine, maybe it's easier if I don't have the jumper. If you look at the spine, okay. So if you look at the spine, it stays neutral. So I haven't rounded, extended, the spine is still in the same position, the movement is coming from the hips, and the legs are the power. They're the big muscles of the legs are the ones that lift. So you don't lift with anything basically other than your legs. Everything else is support. So if I want to lift this ball up from the floor, if I do it like this, which of course you can do, it's not as stable. And if you have pelvic organ prolapse, you need to bend at the knees. You need to come down to pick things up. And then when you pick them up, you need to take them close to your center and use the legs. So I'm not using my arms really at all here. And I'm not using my pelvic floor or my core. I'm using my legs. And that's what we want to do. So we can put it back down with the legs. So the first thing to do is pre-tension. So the co-contraction video that I shared earlier, you want to get that contraction in the lower abdominals, get the contraction in the pelvic floor. That pre-tenses those tissues so that when you start to take load, they're ready. They're not just kind of hanging out there all relaxed. They're engaged and they're ready. So when you start to take extra tension in the legs, it balances a little better through the core and through the pelvic floor. So if we want to pick something up, bend at the knees and allow the upper body to come forward a little bit, and you can practice that. You can practice coming down and back up again, and you can do this with your lower abdominals and your pelvic floor engaged. Just do it a few times just so that you get used to that feeling, and then you can come down, and depending on your flexibility, maybe your heels come up. So you don't have to necessarily come all the way to the floor. You can come down as close as possible and take whatever you have close to your body before you come back up again. Now, the ball, it's kind of a little, it's not a kid, it's 3 kilos. Now, that would be a heavy baby. Let's just put it to one side. Let's imagine that the bolster is a child. Bigger, more awkward, 4 kilos. Okay, 4 kilos, it's a lot lighter than a child, but let's just imagine that this is the child. So instead of picking your child up like this, and just think of it this way, the further away from your center of gravity, your base of support that the thing is, the harder it is. So if I lift from here, I can already feel that all the way down to my feet. You know, it's the tension that comes through the body when I try to lift this is very imbalanced. So you need to get nice and close, and you need to come down and you need to take it close. So if you're going to pick up the child, take them nice and close and use legs. So the legs are doing the work. Pelvic floor is a little bit engaged. And then when you're up, you don't want to like hang in the hips. Try to keep the knees a little bit soft. You want the legs to continue working. You don't want to pop the hips forward. Like it's not a good strategy. It's also loading the pelvic floor. Keep the knees a little bit soft. Use your legs. Hold the child close to the center and try to balance evenly between the legs. Put the child down again. You can again bend at the hips and put the child down. Now, if I've spoken to many women who are working in jobs where they have to lift things in work. So for example, on a checkout, and there's big heavy things that you have to lift from one side and put to the other. Now, this is also very important. If you have pelvic organ prolapse or any pelvic floor dysfunction, you have to be careful when you're lifting things. So if you need to take something from here and put it there, let's say I need to take this from here and I need to put it there, then I shouldn't take it with my body twisted and move it to the other side. I should face it, get close to it, use my legs, lift it with my legs, use my feet to turn me around, and then put it down again using the big muscles, the glutes, big strong muscles, the legs, big strong muscles. So there's no reason for you not to be able to lift even right now. But in order to do it safely, use your big strong muscles, get things as close as you can to your center of gravity and shift the hips to where they need to go. Don't hang in your hips when you're holding. If you are holding a child, try to stay balanced. A little bit of softness in the knees. Now you don't have to bend the knees, but a little bit of softness. And don't shift the hips forward. Just carefully lifting, carefully putting down as much as possible. Don't be lifting things that are too heavy to start. Now, I've also had many messages from women who want to lift big, heavy weights. So obviously I've been doing bodybuilding with my prolapse and I've been lifting over 100 kilos in deadlift and different things. Now the brace that you do for that kind of heavy lifting is different to the brace that you would do that I've just shown just now for lifting things that are a little bit lighter. When you brace, then you need to actually create a solid canister with your core. So it can be very good to use a weight belt. And when you have the weight belt on, when you brace, you you press your stomach out a little bit into the belt, slightly. In bodybuilding, they typically teach you to do a Valsalva, which is a bearing down motion. Now you don't, if you have pelvic floor dysfunction or pelvic organ prolapse, you don't want to do a full Valsalva. What you need to do is have a strong pelvic floor contraction to come up, a good engagement of the core, but with this slight outward. You can use if it's very heavy, if you're lifting over 100 kilos, use a belt and press into the belt with your sides and a little bit with the front of your stomach. But you need a very strong uplifting motion. And again, you're going to, when you take that brace, you're going to inhale for the brace, and it's the inhalation that creates that expansion. And you brace, you hold that canister. So strong uplift, strong core, pressing gently using the inhalation into the belt. Do your lift with the breath held, and then put it down again and release the breath. So I will show maybe a little video of me doing the lift, but it's very, very important if you're going to lift very heavy things that you learn to do the brace. But you should not lift anything that compromises your ability to maintain continence, or to, if you start to feel that what you're lifting is making you feel symptomatic, it's too heavy. Better to come all the way down to light things and very gradually build up. And if you're not working on building maximum strength contractions with your pelvic floor, you're not going to build the tone that you need in order to be able to lift 100 kilos. It's very important to be able to do those maximum strength contractions in different positions. You need to be able to, for example, sumo squat. So if you can't do a maximum strength contraction without weight, with the legs spread and come down and back up holding that, you're not going to be able to do it with weight. So just think about that if you are planning on lifting weights.